This may take a few minutes. Okay.
There we go.
Now I'm going to share, correct?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maintenance Care's webinar on preventative maintenance. I hope you can hear us. I'm Dino Roberge, and I'll be your host and moderator for this event. Before we start, I want to mention that we will be waiting 5 minutes to allow all invitees to join in, as we expect many more people to join. Okay, so bear with us. We'll be muted until we get everybody in, and we'll start at 12:05. Thank you for your time, and we'll discuss later. All right, thank you. Hi, for those joining us, we're going to wait 2 more minutes to start the presentation. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so all right, everybody. So let's start with the webinar. Before we do, though, let me remind you that we will take questions related to the subject matter only, which is preventative maintenance, via the Q&A function that you see at the bottom of this of your computer right now, the Ring Central video conference system. I will be moderating that question period after the presentation only. I would urge all to send questions related to preventative maintenance only. Should you have questions related to other functionalities of the software, I would encourage you to contact our support team as whenever you feel like it, either by email or by phone call or chat. Without further ado, let me introduce to you your trainer for today, Susan Fowler. She is our senior trainer at GenXcore, and she will guide you through the webinar. Susan, take it over. I think, Susan, you're muted. Just
Hello, everyone. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see it. Just give it a second to load. And I'm going to make sure that it is showing. Can everybody see my screen okay? I don't think the share is doing it. Hold on a second. There we go. There we go. Right. Today we're going to be talking about preventative maintenance within the maintenance care system. So preventative maintenance is basically your scheduled maintenance that is either compliance and regulatory or something that's on a schedule. It doesn't have to be preventative. It can be anything on a schedule, but normally preventative maintenance is something that is set up either by a regulatory body, compliance and regulatory, that has to monitor certain things that you have to do. Probably the most common regulatory compliance across any type of facility is fire safety, right? Fire safety is encompassed across, it doesn't matter what kind of building you have. Fire safety is usually set up, and it's set up on a schedule for compliance, extinguishers, sprinkler systems, that sort of thing. So we're going to be talking about that, but we're going to start off first in the tasks page where you see right now. This is what your preventative maintenance will come into once it's triggered. And I'm not sure that everybody knows what the difference is between a preventative maintenance task and a demand style work order visually within your system. And you want to start here because this is where it's going to come into the system. If you look over here, I have a column that's called submitted by, and you can see that there are some work orders that are submitted by system and some work orders that are submitted by a specific person. The system generated is your preventative maintenance. And depending on how you have your task list set up, whether or not you have your date range changed to 30 days, 15 days, 10 days, it doesn't really matter. All of your preventative maintenance will show up. If you want to streamline your view to just see your scheduled maintenance, you can come over to your filter and you're going to just type in system. Okay, that's it. And you're going to hit return on your keyboard or the search button over here. Now, not everybody might be in the actual new Bolt system. That's what we're in right now. Some people still might be in the classic version of maintenance care. If you are in the classic version of maintenance care, in what the classic version looks like, and I'll show you right here on layout, is this. This is what the classic version looks like. To upgrade to the new Bold version, you just have to go up to the very middle of your screen and you're going to click on New Bolt, and it's going to take you into the Bolt system. Okay. Now, the one thing that doesn't come through in that transfer, just for everybody for knowledge, is your column settings. So you will have to go and adjust them. Remember, it's easy to do that. You just go over to any one of the bolded, you mouse over, and you can check or uncheck your column settings. Okay, so again, if you had already had them preset in the classic, they're not going to transfer over to the new version of Bolt. That's the only adjustment that you really will have to make. When you look at your system generated, you can see that all the work orders are here. I can see that I've got new, I've got some pending, I have some closed. So that defines my list. It makes it a little bit easier for me to figure out what I need to do specific to preventative maintenance. Now, depending on your access to the system, over to the right, you've got your different navigation points. All of the preventative maintenance sits in the scheduler. So the scheduler is basically a holding cell for all of your preventative maintenance to trigger on the date and time that they're supposed to. And that could be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. It's not difficult to set up scheduled maintenance. Some of it might come in already pre-populated in your system, maybe because you might be a company that has compliance and regulatory already set up company-wide. It could be because you've gone in and you've set it up already within the system, but it's not difficult to do. It can be a little bit time consuming getting it set up the way that you want it to, but it's pretty easy. Most of the time when you are in the scheduler, you have the ability to see both a planner and a chart, and depending on your access, you might be able to see the calendar also, okay? So we're going to actually go to the scheduler right now, and we're specifically going to go to the scheduled list. That's what we want to see in the system, is the scheduled list. Now, the one thing that you want to make sure you do when you come to this part of the system, and we sort of glossed over it in the task list, is this is what it will look like when you come over to this part of the system. And there are quite a few column headings in your view, and you can actually adjust your column headings to provide you the information that you want to see. And this can be a little bit busy, so you have the ability to go in and adjust it. And it's really easy to do. Again, you go to your column heading and you're going to go in and you're going to just adjust. Okay. I tend to keep it really simple. I might want a category in there, and the category is basically the timing that has been either preset, or if you haven't activated the PM yet, it's what the timing is supposed to be. And timing can be weekly, monthly, other, annual, that sort of thing. But we're just going to remove the category for now because we can easily filter up here. Now, the one thing to remember in the scheduler, just like in almost every part of maintenance care, there is some sort of filter within that part of the system that allows you to search for information. So you can search by facility. So if you have access to more than one license, you can filter out specifically to that license. Again, I just talked about filtering by category. You can absolutely filter by category. Automatically, when you adjust the schedule, which we'll talk about a little bit further into this webinar, you're going to be able to filter specifically to whatever you completely have set up. So if you set it up on an annual or quarterly basis, that category might change. You can filter by task type, classification, who it's assigned to, but this is probably the most common one right here, is keyword search. So if you're searching for something very specific like fire, you can type in the word fire and it will bring up everything that is fire safety related or has the word fire in it. And then again, you can also filter by paused and active. So you can see over here, my status on some of my preventative maintenance is paused, which means it's not yet activated. And you might get to this part of the system and realize that your PMs have not been activated. And they might have already been preset within the system and they need to be activated, which is not difficult to do. You might actually see that some of your preventative maintenance has been activated. Okay, and you'll see that in your active list, usually at the end of the system screen here. Now, to add a preventative maintenance task, you can go up here to add new. You can edit an existing preventative maintenance task if it's paused. You can also edit an existing active PM to change the schedule. Sometimes the preventative maintenance that's been put in the system has been put in on a generic level, which means it's been put in on a date and time that might not be applicable to your location. Annual is probably one of the most common ones, and you can go in and adjust the preventative maintenance task to the actual schedule that you have. Let's say the original preventative maintenance task was in January and your annual inspection is actually in March. You can go in and adjust that schedule. So if we go through the pause list, we can definitely open it up and we can edit it based on that. Sorry, hold on a second. I'm just getting an error. Bear with me for 1 second. I'm just going to log back in. I think I've pushed myself out of the system. Again, I apologize for the delay, everybody. It appears it might be my Chrome browser, so I'm just going to switch to a different browser. Just bear with me for a second.
Susan, if you want me to instead share my screen, we can work together if you want to do that instead.
I'm good now. I just switched. For
Okay,
some reason,
perfect.
my Chrome browser decided to do an update. So that's
Great timing.
it's great timing. Yes. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Just get out here. Sometimes it happens. You learn how to adjust. All right, so we're back to square one again, everybody, and I apologize for that delay. We're going to go back to the scheduler. So again, we're back in a completely different browser. So we're going to go in and we're going to adjust the columns again, just like we did before, right? So I'm going to take out some of my columns. I'm going to keep 3 of them. I'm going to keep the title, the potential fire date, and the status. Okay, and you'll see that throughout the system now. We're good to go. I can see that I have some active and I have some paused. Okay, if I want to see my active list, I'm going to search right here. Okay, and if I want to see my paused list, I can see it right here. We're going to start in the paused part, and we're going to go in and we're going to edit a paused PM and activate it to a schedule. And then we're going to adjust an active PM and we're going to add a new PM. Okay, so I'm going to go down and open up a paused PM. So when you open up a preventative maintenance task, whether it's paused or active at this time, or you're creating a brand new one, you are going to be seeing the first section of the preventative maintenance task, which is the overview. This is where you're going to start building your preventative maintenance task. Title, facility, area possibly, and you're going to make your way through to populating certain fields if they're required. Normally, what I would say when you're putting in a preventative maintenance task is always put the timing into the task itself. The reason that I always advocate for this is it actually, without having to open up the task itself, it will tell you how often it is. You might not be the person that's actually doing the preventative maintenance. You might be somebody in there searching for certain information. When you put the timing in, it allows the person or persons to know how often something happens. Even though technically the category will determine it, it's always good to put that information in. Now you can put it in at the very end. Some people like to put it in at the very back end of the PM. It doesn't really matter how you set it up, but I'm a big advocate for putting in the timing into it. The other thing that you want to put in is specific wording. This one you can see is specific annual vehicle safety inspection. Inspection is the key word here. It's not a test, it's not a check, It's an inspection. And the wording I feel is really important when you're creating your PMs to make sure you put that proper documentation wording in. Very similar to what you might see in any sort of compliance and regulatory request. It specifies what it is. If this was a generator, it would probably be some sort of test, a full load or partial load test. You can put that into the title too. Okay, so try and make sure that you put in the timing and how often. Okay, check, test, readings, whatever it might be. Now, you also have to put in your facility license. Even though you might just have one facility license, you still have to populate it here within the maintenance care system. It's the way the system is built. Not all preventative maintenance has an area. Some of it is all encompassing through the building, but in some cases, you might have a specific area that you will actually do the inspection. It could be a boiler room, a mechanical room, it could be the roof, but it doesn't need to have an area in. In some cases, or most cases, all cases actually, you will have to have a request type. Standardly for preventative maintenance, it's either going to be general maintenance, fire safety, health and safety, life safety. And then in some cases, there might be preset classifications for things that have already been preset in your company facility. Government compliance, fire safety compliance, ISO standardization, right? And what the classification does in any type of preventative maintenance task allows you to filter within the status tab, but more importantly, it allows you to filter for a report. So if you actually classify your work orders under some sort of standardization, you can go and pull an all-encompassing report specific to that compliance or that fire safety. You can also do it by request type too. You also remember too, if you sat in on the reporting webinar that was a couple of months ago, then you would also remember too that you can split your reports in to preventative maintenance and work order. And then from there, you can filter accordingly. Okay. This is not required as far as classification is set. It is something that you can put into the system. Rooms, in some cases, you might have a room, but again, it's not necessary for building or editing your preventative maintenance task. Then we're going to get the preventative maintenance due diligence. So due diligence can fall under many different categories. It can be a whole list of things that must be done. The reason due diligence is important is you're basically providing instruction. Here is what my expectation is for getting this complete. I can also reference a sheet. If you're going to attach a manufacturer's manual or a troubleshooting guide or some sort of checklist, you can reference it here so they know where to go when you reference something. Okay. But in some cases, some people might put in, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3. Not only is it good to put it in because it gives you that follow through for reporting. If you have new people that have started and they are not really sure of what they are supposed to do when they're doing this check, then this is a really great training tool too. You're providing instructional information, or you are directing them to instructional information. Remember, you can attach any type of documentation. You can also attach a URL link that can take you to a Google Drive or a SharePoint Drive where that document might reside. Okay, so in some cases, you have lots of wiggle room here to put in really good information. Okay, so this is basically the starting point of building your PM. Duration, you can preset time that needs to be spent on this inspection. It can be done at this time, or it can be done when the task is triggered and they're actually documenting the work that they're done. But again, it can be preset within the maintenance care system. Now we get to the trigger date and schedule. So remember how I said not too long ago that in the system itself, you can adjust the schedule. So if the system PM was put into the system and it's paused, and you are going in now to adjust your PM list to your facility, maybe the semi-annual tasks aren't really in July and January. They could be in February and August. You can go in and adjust them. The first thing you want to do, though, when you're in the trigger date and schedule is you want to adjust the time. What time of day do you want it to trigger? You don't want all your PMs triggering at the same time. You might notice when you first go to this part of the system that everything is set to 0, which is basically 1 second after midnight. You definitely want to go in and stagger your times. The reason you want to stagger is you don't want them all triggering at the same time, but also too, if you're going to look at the planner is going to have them staggered on your planner. You could have them set up to trigger every 15 minutes, starting at 5 a.m. and finishing at 8 a.m. on a daily basis or weekly basis or monthly basis. Okay. You have the ability then to determine whether they're daily or weekly, monthly, quarterly. So for example, if this is not a quarterly or semi-annual task, but this was daily or weekly, I would go in and I would pick specifically all 7 days of the month if it's day or week, or I would go in and I would do all 5 days or specific days again, and I can set it specifically to months or all months. Okay. Then I can get to a specific day of the month. Okay. So if I want this to trigger the first day of these months, I can do that. If I want it to trigger a certain day like the 8th or the 10th or the 29th, I can go in and I can trigger it specifically. This is probably the most common trigger date and time that we see with customers is this. I can specifically say what day of the week and what week of the week I want it to trigger. And that's because these days sometimes fall on a Saturday or Sunday or maybe on a holiday, and you want to sort of schedule them accordingly. So for example, I could go in and I could put it to the first Monday of these 2 months. I could do the third Monday, I could do the third Thursday, adhering as close to the schedule that you already are doing if you are paper bound right now. Okay, so you're always going to adjust to the schedule that you already adhere to. It can always be tweaked and changed. If you don't like how it's triggering, if you want to go and adjust it, you can always come back to this part of the system and adjust. Then we have other ones where it's specific to the last day of the month. It has to trigger on the last day of the month. And then you get into something that's a little bit more detailed. In some cases, some customers need it to trigger exactly every 30 days. Or again, if this is something that's set up for bi-monthly, then you could set it to trigger every 15 days, starting usually, I would say, on the first of a month, and it will trigger exactly every 15 days. And that would, or 14 days, depending on what your month is and how you want to adjust it. So it's pretty easy and simple to do that. Again, you can adjust the schedule to anything that you want. But here we're going to actually go in and we're going to trigger it to the first Monday of January and July. That's when our semi-annual inspection happens. And then you can get into more of the other sections. This is more advanced where you can go in and you can add a URL, you can pre-assign the work order, you can do all of that. There's a lot more information that can be added to a preventative maintenance task. Okay. And then once you've got all of your PMs done and all of them edited, you save and it already will trigger. So again, we're going to go here. We're going to make sure, actually, this is going to be government compliance, and we're going to save. And now if we go to the end of our list and we filter by active, we will see our PM. And there it's going to trigger, and it's going to become a work order and reset itself to the next date and time. Okay. And again, the fire date, depending on how you have your date format set up, is going to trigger on the date and time. This one's set up by month, day, year. So this one is specifically going to trigger on April 17th, 2024. And again, if I want to filter everything into a list, all I have to do is just click on it and it's going to tell me what's coming up as far as my trigger dates. Okay, so I can go to the next page. So now I see the most recent one that's coming up tomorrow is going to be my interior walkthrough weekly. Again, and so you can see how these are set up. They're not difficult to set up. And you can see that the timing in some of them is at the beginning and the timing is at the end. So now we're going to actually add a preventative maintenance task. We're basically going to do the same thing that we just did, but we're going to go in and we're going to build it. So first thing is the title. What are we adding specific to the system? Okay, so I'm going to actually put in, this is going to be a fire marshal section, and it's going to be the annual, okay, and it might be a building inspection. So I might add that in. I'm going to go and correct my spelling. Okay. And I'm going to click my facility. It's not going to be specific to an area for me because it's building wide. I need a task type. I'm going to add a classification because I do have fire safety compliance. And this is something that's done by an outside body, and it could be done by a contractor. Just because a preventative maintenance task is not done in-house by you, it is done by an outside contractor, you have the ability to put that wording in. And usually what I do or I recommend is this scheduled maintenance is to be completed by a certified professional contractor. And I'll show you where you can go in and assign a vendor if you have vendors set up in your system. The reason that wording is really important in a preventative maintenance task, again, comes through for anybody that might be auditing you. You can put the name of the contractor in if you want, but just that wording itself will determine, that this is going to be done by an outside vendor, right? And again, it could be more wording that you put in there depending on what you feel needs or is necessary. Trigger date and schedule. Again, I want to go in and I want to set it up to come in first thing in the morning. I'm going to set it up for the first Monday or maybe the first Tuesday, right? And I'm going to set it up for May because that's when our inspection is going to happen. Now, I might actually add more information here. I might go in, call to get schedule appointment. I might put in a phone number. I can do as many things as I want in here because I'm adjusting the preventative maintenance test to allow me to have the information I need. Okay, so there it is, 8 a.m., the first Tuesday in May. Now there's another section in here called initial notes. You could put in a little bit more information. You could put in some bullet point things that need to be adjusted rather than having them in the comments section. You can provide like a little mini checklist if you want in here, but it's just providing more information. I don't feel that it's utilized as much as it might have been in the past, but again, you can provide more information. It will pre-populate into the system. And then you get into the other section. So you can pre-assign preventative maintenance to a user. You can set it as a priority. You can attach a link to a SharePoint drive or a Google Drive where a document might reside, and you can attach. Okay? You can also assign to a vendor. Remember, when you're in here and you are talking about adding documentation, it is important to remember to actually reference it. Please see attached, right? Or please see link, right? Or please see reference document. It just points the person in the right direction as far as attaching any documentation. As soon as you save, preventative maintenance task is now live. If I go to the end of my list, there's my annual building inspection. Okay. Now, when it comes to preventative maintenance, you do have the ability in some cases to pause a PM if it is not something that your building does. Probably the most common one is elevator. You can pause a PM, and we recommend pausing PMs and not removing PMs, especially if they've been preset already in your system. You can absolutely pause it. It's going to ask you, are you sure that you want to pause? And you go, yes, and then it will be paused. The paused PMs will not activate in the system. They will stay paused. And then all you have to do is come in here and filter specifically by your active list, and that will show you everything that's open. Now, if we look over to the left again, we have a chart, and the chart is a carryover from the classic version, and the chart actually shows you what's coming up in the future. And this was what was used before the planner came into play. Okay, so again, I can see all of my preventative maintenance coming up in the future, and I can actually change my date range, and I can see what was in the past, and I can see what's coming up in the future. I can also print a PDF view from here too. And then we get to the planner. So the planner is a calendar view rather than a list view of your active PMs. And it will always default to the week. And if you want to see a month, you can see everything that's coming up. The planner is a really good way to do checks and balances between your scheduled list and what you have active, because it's easy in a scheduled list to not realize that you've overloaded a couple of days, or set the time for PMs to be at the same time to trigger rather than staggering them by 15 minutes. So again, you see here I've got two, and I could have quite a few triggering at the same time. So I can go in and I can adjust my PM directly from my planner. So if I don't like the date that it's falling on, maybe it's actually on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I want to go in and adjust it, I'm going to double click and open up here, and I can go in and I can adjust my schedule. So for example, I want to have this on a Wednesday rather than on a Thursday. I might go in and adjust my time from 7:15 to maybe 7 a.m. and I've got it scheduled for every month, and then it will move it over to where I want it to be. This is really helpful too, because in some cases you might overload days, and you need to make sure that you're not overloading the days so that you're not having all of your PMs trigger at the same time on the same day. You can stagger them a little bit. That's a little bit different than your daily and weekly that usually fall on the same day because they're pretty well standardized as far as timing goes. Monthly, you could have them come in at the beginning of the month, like again, the first Monday or the first Tuesday, depending on what your schedule is currently, and same with annually. So you can start looking forward in the future, and you can start to see all of your preventative maintenance that's coming up, and you can do a PDF view, and you can print it off if you want to. Okay. So to recap, we're going to go back to our task list. Okay. Remember, you have the ability to adjust your columns. When I moved over to the other browser, it went back to default. So again, I can go in and I can adjust my columns here. If you want to filter specifically by preventative maintenance, you can just type in system, and it will filter preventative maintenance. Remember too that you can print yourself a list, or if a list needs to be printed, maybe an outside contractor's coming in, you can click on the very first PM and hold down your control or command key, and you can actually print a list, or you can print individual pages. So if this is something that might be done by an outside contractor, you can definitely print a list and hand it off to them. Maybe that's what they need to know what they do in that building that day. Okay. So again, really simple and easy to adjust. Same with the scheduler. You can go in and adjust your column settings, and you can search by keyword. And remember, there's always going to be paused and active unless you've activated all your PMs. You can definitely open them up, and you can start to edit them to your facility. Okay. So I'm going to just point out a couple of more things as far as the system goes. Remember that if you need help, there is a customer support number here. There's an email, there's a chat, and there's a phone number. We also have a really great online wiki. And if you wanted to know more about preventative maintenance, if you go to the Enterprise User Guide and you go to navigation, you can go to the Scheduler tab, and it breaks it down exactly like we talked about today into step-by-step visual instructions. And there will be probably a video at the very end that you can go to. And if not, you can check out all of our other videos that are trying to be a little bit more of a self-starter, and you can try and figure things out on your own, but always remember to contact customer support. Okay. So I'm going to stop there for now. And Dino, do you want to open it up to any
Yes.
Q&As?
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. Yes, we do have a lot of questions and comments. Let me start by the first one that was sent to us. Mark says, I'm missing having a 30-day icon in Bolt. Well, I think I'm trying to work with Bolt, but still switching back and forth. Mark, what I would suggest to you is, like Susan said, because it is not related essentially to the PM subject matter, I would send us an email or go through the chat function or call us, and we'll be able to help you with that one.
Yes.
Eric says, can you make the columns be set to not change?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
we don't control what browser you use. Remember how I had to switch browsers halfway through because my Google browser decided to update at the wrong time? So your browser will keep its settings unless you have to go in or for some reason the cache is cleared. Okay. And we don't control how your browser is set up. You control how your browser is set up. There is a way to keep cached information, but one of the reasons why you have to clear the cache is a lot of people don't exit out of maintenance care properly. They just exit out of their browser rather than logging out of maintenance care the proper way. Okay. And sometimes when you don't log out of your browser the correct way, it keeps cached information and eventually you'll get that error, right? 402 error is usually the one that comes up. So you'll have to clear your cache. So we don't control the browser. It's just one of those settings in a web-based system that, you try and mitigate as much as possible. But good question.
Thank you. Andrea, hi Andrea. For my facility, I cannot get to all the function all. Only the north and south show separately. The function all does not change anything. I'm guessing it's related to her security level or what she sees in her system. Not sure. Susan?
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, in the filter, you don't have the ability to switch from facility to facility, and you don't have the ability to switch from active to all. So one thing to remember for everybody is that you can switch your filter to active system, and that brings up basically everything open that's system generated. And you'll see, remember, maintenance care in the new Bolt system has that sticky filter. So unless you reset it, it will keep it to this. So it just might be that you don't have your filter set properly. And again, if you need help with that, please reach out to customer support. Someone would
Yeah.
be able to walk you through how to correctly either reset your filter. And there's ways within your account settings to set it so it's always at active, so you don't adjust your sticky filter. So again, please reach out to customer support.
Perfect. Rebecca, hi Rebecca. She's asking, and it's not related to the PMs or any questions related to that. It's more, will this video be emailed for viewing later? Yes, absolutely. In a couple of weeks, our marketing team will be sending you a newsletter like you usually receive, and to which you actually join this conference with. You'll be getting the link to the video later on. Ryan, hi Ryan. Long time no see. If using template, it's a more a comment than a question, and I know that Ryan uses the system a lot. If using templates, if you put the timing after the name, it makes it easier to search the list when copying templates to other licenses.
That's correct.
So
Yes.
exactly.
That's my
So
preference. That is my preference, is to put the timing at the end of the PM run at the beginning. Again, it's really up to the person creating the preventative maintenance task.
perfect. Eric, hi Eric. Are you going to cover debt sets? For those who don't know what debt set is, it is a determined set of questions. That's what debt set means. Susan, we did not go over that, but I think it's a bit more complex to address it during a webinar. I would suggest to Eric that he reaches out to our service and we can explain to him how we can work it out with his system.
That's correct. Yeah. Debt set is something that you need someone to walk you through. And what debt set really is, for anybody that wants to know, is the detailed set of questions that can be preset within your system. It's like a question list, and it can be attached to a preventative maintenance task. And there are limitations based on number of licenses and things like that. So you should really reach out to customer support, and they will be able to help you find out how to set up a debt set. They can help you do that and to see what your limitations may be within the system. Okay.
Thank you. Danielle, I don't see schedule on mine. So he's
Okay.
asking why he's not seeing it. So go ahead, Susan. You can explain why, probably.
So Daniel, you'll have to go to your master user. We do not adjust user roles, and user roles are defined by navigation points. So a master user has access to all parts of the system, specifically the user part of the system, and they can assign your license or your user to see the scheduler. So if you haven't been assigned it, you need to go whoever the master user. If you're not sure who the master user is in your system, there's usually a couple of people. You can reach out to customer support and they'll be able to tell you who does have that access to make that change.
Thank you. Lauren, hi Lauren. I'm sorry if this has been already covered, but is it possible to schedule a task with an expected date for completion?
So yes and no. And what I mean by that, if you go to the scheduled task specifically, and you are creating, I'm just going to go in and filter by my active right here. If I'm going to put in, let's say this is an annual inspection, okay, that's just the one I just built right now. There is no way to put a preset date, but if you think about it from the workflow perspective, I can put in that this is to be completed by and put in the date, right? You know, could be, September 2023, whatever, whatever the date would be, dot, dot, dot. And then when that triggers, you can see the completed by date. Now, in some cases, it has to be delayed. A task will be delayed because maybe this is done by a fire marshal, and then you could delay the task to trigger on the date that it's supposed to be done. And that's more of a workflow than specifically your preventative maintenance task. So my suggestion would be at this time to put in specifically the date it's supposed to be completed by. Because remember, this is your due diligence built into the preventative maintenance task.
Thank you. Ryan asks, can a number of days exceed 365? For example, a 5-year PM, for example, every 1,825 days. He gives an example of an elevator testing 5-year period or a generator PM or any wet sprinkler inspection. How can you do that? And can you do that?
So you can do it with some adjustments that are necessary. And what that means is when you are scheduling a preventative maintenance task that's going to happen in the future more than 365 days, you will set it up as a one-time preventative maintenance task. And then you will have to put into notes to go back and adjust it for 5 years again. So as an example, if I go here and I'm going to set this out to 2028, okay, and it's going to be April 2nd, 2028, that's when it's going to trigger, whether it's 5 years or 10 years or 3 years or 2 years. And in my notes, I'm going to have to put in the instructional information to reset it to the next 5 years once that task triggers.
Thank you, Susan. Carrie asks, hi Carrie, can you attach an Excel spreadsheet with checklist that needs to be filled out?
So it
I think
depends
you showed
on
that
the
already.
checklist.
Yeah.
So if we
Yes.
think about it, yeah, you can link to a drive where the checklist is attached, and you can attach the URL link to the actual preventative maintenance, which we went over. You can also attach a Excel spreadsheet as a document, but it's not going to be something that's real time. And if you want to know more about how and what you can do, I would again suggest that you reach out to customer support and we can talk about all of the different variations when it comes to checklists and forms that can be incorporated within maintenance care.
Thank you, Susan. A couple of people have asked, including Shelley, and I think my others also. Hi, Shelley. Will Susan show us how to add a URL or a document to the task and more in details, please? I think if we can repeat it, maybe.
Sure, absolutely. It's not difficult to do, it's pretty easy. you're going to go to the other section here, and that's where the document URL resides. You have to have a link to share, obviously. The most common links are something that goes to where something might reside, like a SharePoint drive or a Google Drive. And you can always pull that link from there, and all you have to do is just copy and paste it here. What will happen then is when the task does trigger with that link, it will show up in the work order. Sorry, I'm just going to see if there's one here. There might be one here. It will show up here as an external URL link here. So you do have to reference it, just like I mentioned before, when you're building your PM, reference the green URL. And you might want to put that into your notes and also put it in your comments. It's up to you, but you want them to reference it. And then when they click on that link, it's going to take them to where the document resides, which can be updated. Again, it could be a document, it could be a user manual, it could be anything.
All right, thank you. Lauren is asking, could you cover the attachment of images as well? Attached image are so small and compressed they are not useful because of the compression factor, but I think that's more of a support. Maybe they have an issue with the size of their, so Lauren, I would ask you to reach out to our support staff. They might want to take a look at what you're doing so that the images are not that compressed and not small enough.
That's correct. That would be the best thing to do for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Brandon, hi Brandon. Can you walk through how to use the templates?
If you want to create a master PM template, master PM templates are usually only for multi-license. So if you have more than one license, right? If you're considered a corporate customer that has many facilities, then you can create a master PM template that can be pushed out to each facility. And again, you should reach out to customer support and somebody will be able to contact you to find out if that is the best solution for you.
All right, thank you. Hela G, hi. You asked how to deactivate a scheduled task on a holiday. So I think you went through that, showing how to change the status, but if you can just repeat it again for our listeners.
So one thing to remember too, that if something does trigger on a day that, let's say it is a holiday or it's a weekend, you can go in and adjust your schedule. It doesn't mean that you can't delay it or things like that. But, part of your workflow is delaying or just keeping an active work order in your system. But when you're looking at a scheduled task, you want to make sure that it is triggering on the dates and times that you want it to. So again, standardly, holidays fall on Christmas, New Year's, those are days that they're going to fall on. So January 1st, always. Sometimes the first of the month, which is probably the most common trigger date, could be a holiday or it could be a weekend. So again, I usually say if you don't want something to fall on a holiday, try and do it, like the first Tuesday of a month or a year. And normally Tuesday is a pretty good day, or Wednesday. Again, the system doesn't recognize holidays. It just recognizes dates, whether it's the first Monday or the first date or the 15th of a month. It doesn't really matter. If it comes into your task list on that, you could either delay it to when you might be back or to when the holiday is over. So again, maybe over Thanksgiving break or things like that. Or you could go in and adjust it so it doesn't fall on a holiday weekend. So what I mean by that is standardly, in this date range here, every Tuesday or every Wednesday. Again, you can play with your timing. It's up to you. You can adjust your timing to whatever you want it to be.
Thank you. Ryan had the answer for the photos, the images that are too small. He says you can view high definition versions of the images in the Space Center, which is the correct answer. Hi, Ryan, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Zulinia, hi. I can see everything when I'm logged in on my computer, but when I log into my iPad, it doesn't show everything. Why?
Because you don't have your filter set properly. And for anybody that's using the mobile app, this is a really good thing. We're going to walk through this because it's something you need to know. When you're in the mobile app, the system doesn't automatically allow preventative maintenance to come in. You have to tell it that you want it. So if you're in the mobile app, everybody knows in the upper right corner, there's a filter. When you tap on filter, the recommended filter is to change the status to active, which is everything open, especially in the mobile app, because your screen size is very limited and you don't need to scroll through 100 work orders to find out what's open. The next one you're going to do is you're going to do your range. You're going to change your range to 30 days, last 30 days technically is what it is. But more importantly, over to the right in your filter, you have 3 check marks. And those check marks are usually gray. If they're all blue, uncheck them and only check one for now. And that's going to be preventative maintenance. You're going to check off that little mark so it turns blue, and that's directly across for PMs. Now, if you also filter by what's assigned to you, then you would check off that box. Don't check off priority because priority will highlight on your screen anyway. So let's recap. Active, last 30 days, definitely preventative maintenance checked off on that filter. Okay. And then again, if you only filter by what's assigned to you, then you would check that off and then you would hit submit. And that will allow scheduled maintenance to come in. You will also see all work orders then. Okay. That's really important because a lot of people call saying, I'm not seeing scheduled maintenance in the app. It's because you haven't told the system you need to. Okay.
Thank you, Susan. Exceptionally, I'll answer one unrelated question because I think it's mostly general about the app itself, but the person anonymous said, is there a mobile app for the system? Absolutely. You need to download it on any iPhone or Android phone. It's called IMCare in the store, the respective
If you go
store,
to the
right?
wiki, there's a really great quick filter right here to the mobile app that will walk you through installation and download and navigation.
Yes.
Okay, and it'll provide you download for Apple and Android.
Thank you. I don't think I have other questions, Susan. So thank you all for taking part in this one. It's our third one of the year, and we're gonna continue with another one in April. Stay tuned for the subject matter. You'll get an email and a newsletter about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.